Welcome to Going Through Health with Gordy and Zed.
Where wellness gets a fun twist. I'm Gordy Jenkins, a natural foods entrepreneur, and with me is Dr. Zed DeBout, our resident trained Stanford MD. We are former college swim teammates turned best friends, and now your guide to this crazy world of health trends and fitness hacks with a focus on getting the science right. Get ready for a wild ride. This is Going Through Health with Gordy and Zed. Today, Zed and I are combing the roots of an age-old mystery. Gray hair. Why do we go gray? Are our strands surrendering to stress, aging, mortality? Or is there something we can actually control? Then, don't wig out. It's a historical perspective on the public perception of gray hair throughout the ages. Basically, do they pass the witch test? Before we wrap up, as always, with Gordy and Zed's Fastfire Questions. But, because we were too young to dye our hair, I guess we're not that young anymore. I guess we're probably the perfect age to dye our hair. But anyways, Ed, what have you learned while going through health this week?
Well, I've kind of a personal going through health tale this week because in honor of Halloween and candy and cavities, I actually had a bit of a dental episode, if you can believe that. And I don't even eat candy.
No,
So,
I don't.
A couple of weeks ago, I had a barbecue and noticed my tooth was cracked. One of my top left molars was just cracked. And I was like, I feel like this didn't used to be cracked. And so I was kind of kept feeling it for the entire rest of the barbecue, which also is a good way to not have to talk to people at a barbecue.
Dude, that's the worst, that when you notice something like,
Oh yeah. Just hyper fixate.
you're like, well, there goes my barbecue.
and then the next day, the tooth just basically sloughed off at the crack. It chipped. A piece of my head fell out of my face, and I was like, "Damn, this cannot be good." But they don't teach you anything dental in medical school. Totally separate. It's kind of the dentist territory. That's where they draw the party lines or the battleground lines between dentists.
Fun fact. For those who didn't know, those are called dentists, those doctors of the teeth.
And that's exactly who I went to visit this past week. So I get into the dentist and they get me back in the chair, and he's already 2 needles into my gums at this point. But he did a very good job with the needles. I don't know if you've had this little trick, but he stretched my lip way out. So I looked like a hound dog, but then kind of flicked it when he put the needle in, so I didn't even notice. But yeah, interesting technique. Anyway, so
all right, I might have to try that later. What?
All right, so he's 2 needles in, as they say, and half of my face is in outer space. And that's at this point he starts going over the estimate. So literally has me over the barrel. I've already had the x-rays, and he's working back and forth. The front desk person is coming in and out. And he's like, okay, so all right, I have the estimate for you. And I was like, bro, this seems like a little bit late. So he's like, yeah, we did the x-rays, we're doing the filling, so it's going to be this much. And I was like, well, what do you need me for at this point in terms of okaying the estimate? It's kind of like it's happening. Anyways,
Right,
found that frustrating.
That is a bit frustrating.
And then he's kind of tutting about my insurance. He's like, well, yeah, your insurance kind of, it's not too great. It kind of covers less than we're used to. I was like, so, let me guess, this is going to be more expensive out of pocket than I was hoping. And then genius me blamed it on my wife real fast. I was like, oh, it's actually my wife's insurance.
Oh.
And then he turned it around right back on me. He's like, oh, do you not have a job? Or you're not working right now?
Wow, you guys are really in a battle.
I was like, oh, I'm working on a podcast that I'm going to roast you in.
And what do you say? What do you say?
No, I didn't have the courage.
But man,
he was very much this smooth mumbler. And he would say things, but it was the kind of speech pattern where you didn't really understand what he said till 10 seconds later. It took your brain some time to process because it's kind of a very smooth. So he put this tool in my mouth, and all of a sudden it was shaking my entire cranium very, very vigorously. This kind of, I imagine it's just a jaw vibrator. Again, not familiar with dentist tools.
No.
But then it was about 5 seconds after he started that I realized he asked me right before, like, okay, this is gonna vibrate a bit. So heads up. So useless heads up. Anyways, get through the appointment. Nice guy. I get to the front desk, and the front desk lady is like, oh, like, how'd it go? And I was like, oh yeah, pretty good. And she's like, by the way, just so you know, he probably didn't tell you, but he worked through his lunch to do this. And I was like, okay.
Oh, well, passion project.
Yeah, you don't need to tell me that. First of all, you guys picked the time. You guys asked me if this time worked for me. So don't come at me with, he had to work through his lunch for you.
Clarification. Was he eating while he was like working on you? Like, did he actually work through his lunch? Was he like having a sandwich? And he's like, your mouth's all open?
Falling into my mouth. No.
Well, no, so he basically what he did was he used his personal time to jam what you're describing as a jaw vibrator in and out of your head a lot to vibrate your skull. Did you go to a real dentist, or was this like some bathroom off on a truck stop on some interstate highway?
It said we'll fix your hole.
Oh, good.
But no, so I was like, you guys picked the time. I also didn't get lunch. You don't see me complaining about it. Also, right. I'm pretty sure given the fact I'm handing you my credit card, he got paid for this. So don't try to make me feel bad that he had to work through his lunch.
Yeah, what's like this is like this dentist office that just runs on like emotional baggage and like emotional social equity on people.
For real. But anyway, it's just a little cautionary tale as you dig into your bags of leftover Halloween candy that you might also have a little bit of a weird dentist experience if you're not too careful. And don't get cavities, kids.
All dentist experiences are weird. Shout out to our dentist listeners. It's not your fault. It's just a weird thing. If you ever have to be with someone with their mouths just like artificially open for a long time, it's just a weird scenario. Okay, so I'm just giving everyone a pass today on that. But Zed, it is time to move on to real health things.
I wish I could.
Today, our subject is gray hair. So first, we're going to be taking the GTH time machine, beep boop, beep 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 beep, to Paris in 1793.
Analog.
It was made back in the day. It was really ahead of its time. It's a time machine. It doesn't have times. It makes sense. Don't ask questions. The air around us is heavy with revolution and probably cheese. Nobles are out. Heads are rolling, and the French people are calling for change. Marie Antoinette, once the Queen of France, is now public enemy number one, locked in a cold cell in the Conciergerie prison, stripped of her power, her freedom, and even her family. She's waiting for the inevitable, a one-way trip to the guillotine. And according to legend, Zed, on the night before her execution, something happened that no one could explain. Sacre bleu. Here's how the story goes. Marie, alone in her cell, pacing the floor, unable to sleep, waiting for the rendezvous with the guillotine. She's a queen no longer, now just a prisoner awaiting her fate. She reaches up to her hair, expecting to feel the familiar softness of her once prized strawberry blonde locks, only to stop short. Something feels different. She brings her hand down and stares. Her fingers are covered with pale, silvery strands, delicate as spider silk. Shocked, she realizes her hair has changed. What haven't they taken from me?
Oh, great. Yeah, now I'm going to go look all old in all my execution photos. Guillotine Day ruined. Hope you're happy,
Such a
French peasants.
That's right, Zed. That's right. Her hair supposedly turned stark white, drained of color in seemingly a single night. By the time Marie Antoinette was led to the guillotine, some onlookers were apparently shocked, not at her fall from grace, but at her appearance. Whispers spread around the crowd. And could you just imagine how passive-aggressive and nasty a bunch of French revolutionaries could be toward a deposed queen going gray? I bet that was just brutal.
I have a couple for you. All right, ready?
What you got?
Mustard Marie. Is that gray poop on her head?
Oh, all right. Gray poop on. I like that.
All right, I got one more. All right. Dairy Queen, more like gray hairy queen. Killer.
Oh, they got her. They got her. They got her, Zed. Yeah, she thought she was just getting her head chopped off. She didn't know it'd be a roast. So, by the way, a little fun fact here: Marie Antoinette probably never actually said "let them eat cake." That line's often.
She was French.
That's true. She would say, but just to even top your little snark, yeah, she would have said it in a little bit of a German accent. She spoke French with a German accent because she was from the Holy Roman Empire. So she was actually from Austria. So her first language wasn't French. You fucking prick. By the way, okay, so She never said, let them eat cake. And that line's often used, to show how out of touch she supposedly was. But it actually most likely came from the philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau. And he wrote about this great princess who found out her people didn't have bread. And she supposedly said, let them eat brioche, which is, a fancy bread. She said it in French. She said it in French. Also, Rousseau wrote all of this before Marie Antoinette even set foot in France. Again, not born in France. So turns out she was unfairly stuck with the line as a symbol of royal indifference. The line of, let them eat cake. It really doesn't matter. Said what really matters was her hair color, as you know.
Interestingly, brioche actually great for French toast. So it all comes back around.
All right, but today we're talking about that French roast of Marie Antoinette. Marie was only 37, Zed, believe it or not, but but with that stark white hair and weary expression, she looked much older, more ghost than royalty, they said. It seems the revolution aged her faster than Versailles ever did, which is not surprising at all. It's like, oh yeah, everybody wanting me dead is really aging me a lot faster than just like living in a giant mansion and chilling all the time. Shocking. But yeah, it's a story that's stuck around for centuries because it taps into the powerful idea that stress, trauma, and fear can age us in an instant. Did Marie Antoinette's hair really go white overnight? And I'm sure Dr. Zed is going to get into a little bit of the science here in a second, but high level, hair doesn't itself lose its color once it's all grown out. So it doesn't like turn white on the spot. But what can happen, and this condition's actually been called Marie Antoinette syndrome. The dermatologists know it as canitis subita, which means sudden graying in Latin. And what happens with this is that there's a sudden shedding of pigmented hair, revealing the white or gray strands underneath. And so like in certain people with alopecia, extreme stress can cause rapid loss of darker hair, leaving only the gray or the white strands behind. And so it creates that illusion of overnight graying. But like I could also see it being a situation where like a famous, well-pampered person like Marie Antoinette suddenly was not able to use all of her cosmetics. Like I'm sure like if a bunch of Hollywood actresses went to prison, their second mugshot would look like a lot different than their first mugshot. I don't know. It's just my hypothesis.
Interesting. So you think Hollywood actresses should go to prison if they go gray?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yes.
Do I have that right?
That's true. Yes, you got it. I do live in California. That's a law. So while Marie's tale may be a bit of a stretch, it's rooted in a phenomenon that science now understands a little better. So here's where the science backs up some of the story. Chronic stress absolutely speeds up the graying process, though usually at a slower pace. A 2020 study from Columbia University found that stress depletes the pigment-producing cells in our hair follicles. When stress levels spike, the adrenal glands flood our bodies with adrenaline and cortisol, which can trigger oxidative damage, essentially wearing out the cells that keep our hair colorful. So while Marie's overnight white, Zed's college nickname, was likely a myth.
Jesus Christ.
While Marie's overnight white was likely a myth, stress can, over time, contribute to a head of gray hair, though a little more gradually than her story suggests. And I think the story stuck because it's such a powerful image. It plays into that universal fear that the traumas we endure in life can like snatch away our youth before we're ready. And while we probably can probably say that her hair didn't quite change that suddenly, this myth of overnight aging serves a reminder of just how visible stress can be. So next time you spot a gray hair, Zed, and think, hey, this podcasting job is aging me, just recall Marie Antoinette. The silver lining, though, is that she probably didn't actually lose all her golden locks in one night, but she did lose her head in a day. It's like the Grateful Dead says, every silver lining has a touch of gray.
Very wise.
Very wise. Wise, yeah, that is kind of a theme today. But that's our subjective, Zed. Can you hit us with the objective? Objectify me, Captain.
All right. Gray hair, medically known as canitis or chromotrichia.
Yeah,
trichia.
I remember that trick, that prefix from like trichotillomania or whatever, that pulling out your hair syndrome.
Yeah.
So a little etymology fun fact. Yeah, yay.
Hey, maybe a chromotrichomania pulling out your gray hair. That could be something.
All right. Or it's no color hair because chromo, color, chromo. Tricky. All right. Let's rock. What you got for us? I'm ready, baby. I'm so ready.
So yeah, it's defined as the process by which hair loses its natural pigment, as Gordy alluded to. So that results in the color change to gray or white. So this actually happens thanks to a reduction or cessation in melanin production, secondary to melanocyte stem cell death in the hair follicles. So melanocytes, the cells we all know and love, are specialized skin cells, and those are responsible for producing melanin. So that's the pigment that gives color to the skin, the hair, the eyes. And these melanocytes, they're primarily located in the basal layer of the epidermis and within hair follicles. So that's where the color in those tissues comes from. And then the color of hair specifically results from melanin pigments transferred to the hair fiber keratinocytes from the hair follicle melanocytes.
All right. That makes sense. That's cool, though. Makes sense.
And then over time, melanocytes, they gradually decrease in number and activity, and that's what leads to the gradual loss of hair color. So gray hair is really that loss of color. It's not actually a change to white or gray pigment production. So basically the color just kind of dying out, and then the hair looks gray or white because of the way that the light interacts with those keratinocytes. And then a mnemonic that I use as of writing this outline is that,
Just in case, so you're saying that the gray hair, there's no color. They're not actually like silver hair. If you like, it's more of just like the way that the light is scattered makes it look like that.
correct. There's not actual silver pigment or white pigment.
That's cool. That's an interesting little fact.
So a little mnemonic. Black is the absence of light, but gray is the absence of melanocyte. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's good. Is that one
classic.
of Ben Franklin's little adages?
Yeah, that's a another Hippocrates banger. But yeah, so this process
Hold on,
is
incoming Hippocrates drop.
Just trying to skate through there.
It's Hippocrates. Hip to hip hop to hippie to the hip Hippocrates.
Can't say Hippocrates without getting the hip hop drop.
So smooth. Yeah, this process is a natural part of aging. It's influenced by genetic factors. It can also be accelerated by environmental stressors. There's potential nutritional deficiencies and certain medical conditions. Somewhat interestingly, I found in this research article from the Journal of Clinical and Aesthetic Dermatology, I'm not quite sure how completely locked in this is, but they had some demographic numbers where the typical age of onset for Caucasians is mid-30s. They have Asians for late 30s, and African Americans mid-40s. I'm just going to leave that there and move. So just for an analogy, which is going to be super relevant to all of our daily habits today, but sort of the way hair goes gray is kind of like color printer runs out of ink. So hopefully this isn't relevant for anyone anymore, but the melanocyte is like the ink cartridge and the hair fiber keratinocytes are the paper. And then kind of ironically, the color printer running out of color ink used to be how you got gray hair. But yeah, it's kind of
That's true. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Am I going to spend my life savings on new ink cartridges or just never print anything again? That age-old dilemma.
Oh my God. It's like the most expensive substance on earth or something weird like that.
It literally was probably close to the weight in gold, like ginger used to be. Shout out Ginger episode.
Shout out Ginger episode.
But yeah, could I think of an older, less relevant analogy? Maybe a printing press running out of ink or running out of berry juice to dye thread before you weave it on the loom. But yeah, all same concepts.
Or like
your hair going gray.
Caveman's finger falling off when he's like writing on the wall on the walls of the cave. Does that work?
Not him running out of paint. Exactly. You get it.
You kind of get it. All right, good.
But for obvious reasons, this is relevant to everyone. If you're listening and you don't have gray hair yet, you will by the end of this podcast or at some future point in your life if all goes well. The things to look out for is it can be a potential indicator of underlying health conditions, but most often it's simply a visible sign of aging, which is maybe why so many people fight tooth and nail against going gray. Nails, which we said, also made out of keratinocytes, and we paint them colors too. So what the heck is up with humans and dying keratinocytes?
Oh, I don't know. We're asking our listeners.
If you know. All right. But ultimately, sort of understanding this process, I think, can really help destigmatize natural aging. And who knows, maybe even change societal perceptions of aging and beauty and promote acceptance. Or either that or fuel demand for expensive designer drugs so that we can look young forever. But I really think we need more kind of silver fox branding around gray hair. So yeah, try to think of some more branding to make going gray sexy again.
Yeah,
Again.
I think again. Well, I'll tell you all the times it was sexy. I think I don't worry about going gray, and I'm sure a lot of people do. And I think some of that, I'm wondering, I guess, is that because I'm a man, or is it like more? Is it a lot easier for me, or is it more acceptable? I don't know. Maybe I'm just like a really chill, low key dude. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just like I'm so cool that it doesn't bother me.
That's it. Or I mean, from my super myopic perspective, I mean, I'm only familiar with kind of, like Salt and Pepper, sexy George Clooney,
Yeah, that's
or
what I mean.
he's a silver fox. Yeah, you don't really
Right.
hear like, she's a silver witch.
We'll get to that later, folks. It's not it is out of left field, but
You'll get it.
you'll appreciate it. Well, Zed, I think our sponsor today actually will provide just the representation that you are seeking. So we'll be right back. Are you tired of kids rolling their eyes every time you speak? Sick of being overlooked at work? Do people keep asking for the older person's opinion when you're right there? Introducing Gray Spray, the only hairspray that gives you instant authority, one silver strand at a time. With just a few spritzes of Gray Spray, you can turn any head of hair into a sophisticated blend of salt and pepper. Gone are the days of looking like a young nobody. Now you can look like someone who's been around the block. In a good way. Just listen to what real users have to say. Before Gray Spray, my kids called me dude. Now they call me sir. It's like an instant respect in a can. Even my boss started calling me for advice on things I don't even know about. He said I have gravitas. I had to look it up. It's as if an ancient Roman senator had a baby with a Victorian socialite. Gray Spray is made with our patented Silver Essence formula, scientifically untested but guaranteed to make you look 20 years smarter. Perfect for PTA meetings, job interviews, or high school debate club. Gray Spray, because life isn't always black and white, but your hair can be. Welcome back, everyone. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and rate us 5 stars on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Videos will be coming soon. We've been working on that, and that's going to be really cool. I'm excited for people to see that, so be on the lookout for that on the horizon there. And new episodes Monday morning at goingthroughhealth.podcast on Instagram. .podcast on Instagram.
All right. We're talking about gray hair, Gordy. I think it's time to break down our impressions and share some asides as part of our assessment.
Alrighty. Well, Zed, you can't talk about gray hair without mentioning that it might be written in our DNA. Yes, right there in a gene scientists discovered not too long ago. This gene is called IRF4, and it has been linked to gray hair. And it's a trait that may have its roots deep in human evolution. So here's a scoop. IRF4 is responsible for regulating melanin production, as you talked about, the pigment that gives hair its color. For years, researchers had suspected that graying was more than just a fluke of aging. They thought there might be a genetic reason why so many people eventually go gray. And in 2016, a team from University College London found solid evidence. They pinpointed IRF4 as the first gene directly associated with hair graying, linking it back to our early ancestors. And it turns out the appearance of gray hair might not just be about getting older. It could be an adaptation with evolutionary roots. So why would evolution favor something that seems like a glaring sign of aging? Well, some anthropologists suggest that gray hair might have been a way for early humans to signal experience and survival. In a small tribe where age could mean the difference between wisdom and becoming saber-toothed tiger poop, gray hair might have been a status symbol, a way to say, I've survived, and I know things.
Now, Gordy, you told me you've started reading The Hobbit recently, correct?
That's true, yeah. I have started listening to The Hobbit.
So you're familiar with Gandalf the Grey?
Mm-hmm. I was.
Yeah.
I mean, I always have been, but I get it. Yeah, continue.
Yeah, so I think I haven't dug into this, but I think the whole Wizard's Order of Middle Earth is kind of shaped around this idea that the grayer and whiter you get, kind of the wiser you are. Because there's this Radagast the Brown guy, and he's kind of a lower level wizard. He probably has stupid brown chestnut hair and doesn't know shit. But then Gandalf the Grey, a little wiser, a little higher in the pecking order. Then of course, as you will continue your journey in Middle Earth.
Are you about to spoil something for me? Or just say it. Who is it?
No. There's just a wizard called Saruman the White, who's the head of the Wizard Order. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Sour cream
kind of
the white.
symbol of wizards. Sour cream the white. Let's hope.
But yeah, no, we see remnants of that today, and we kind of view gray hair as a marker of authority or wisdom. I think of it as kind of presidential. Presidents have gray hair, and I go, Obama started with his dark hair, but then he ended up with white hair, kind of the stress thing we're talking about. And like Trump went Marie Antoinette strawberry blonde and like ended Marie Antoinette strawberry blonde. And Biden went from white to I just shaved my head and wetted my scalp and then walked through a spider web. It works, Ed. It works. Being president is not great for your hair, I don't think. And it's an age thing, so we'll see. But yeah, it's almost as if our DNA is saying to us that here's your survival badge, wear it proudly. And we're like, all right, we'll see. Because now we live in a world of hair dye and salon treatments. But there's a reason gray hair still carries that subconscious weight. It's a marker that goes all the way back to our evolutionary roots. It's a reminder that you're part of a long line of survivors, Ed. And you might even say that gray hair was one of humanity's earliest status symbols. But more on that later.
Yeah, I feel like it used to be this sign of knowing things, but now kind of weirdly the opposite in some cases. There probably aren't a ton of people going, oh, hey, grandma, the audio on my Instagram reel isn't syncing with the video. Can you help?
That's actually fascinating.
Although maybe the graybeards are still the wisest because they don't give a rat's ass about Instagram reels. So kind of another way to look at it.
By playing the game, you lose automatically, right? That's what you're saying. It's just like I like that idea. I mean, there's so many cool, like that in theory, the study of like technological advancement over a lifespan and how much elders are respected. I'm sure there's some kind of, with a changing technological society and things like that, it's hard to catch up, I bet. More hard than ever. Harder than ever. Well, cool. Zed, those are some things that I found most interesting. But what are some things that you found particularly compelling?
All right. So I know you've touched on stress a bit so far. And so this is an article dealing with a little bit of the mechanism behind that, which I found interesting. So it's called Hyperactivation of Sympathetic Nerves Drives Depletion of Melanocyte Stem Cells. So we know melanocytes are those pigment cells in hair follicles. But yeah, this was by Zhang et al. In Nature 2020. And again, one of the good ones. And basically the researchers used various approaches to induce stress in a mouse model. Kate Mouse.
Mouse model. All right. But no, kind of sad though at the same time. But
definitely a bummer. So I don't know. In my head, I pretend the researchers were like doing, I don't know, not horrible things to give the mice stress. Like they were just kind of acting moody. And then when the mice asked what's wrong, the researchers were like, nothing. And then kind of kept stomping around and closing cabinets a little too loudly.
I hope so. I hope they weren't just like subjected to like political ads in an election year because that'll also do the trick. But yeah, I either way, I would feel very bad for the mice. So what's the study all about?
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe this will help you feel better, but all lab mice are probably a little bit stressed because, like Marie Antoinette, a lot of them end up going to the guillotine at the end of their lives.
Thanks.
Sorry. Yeah, so in this fun study, they found that acute stress causes hair graying by rapidly depleting melanocyte stem cells. Basically, they found that this process is independent of any immune attack, so immune system response attacking those follicles, or any adrenal stress hormones, these catecholamines like norepinephrine from the adrenal glands circulating in the system. So independent of those factors, basically, there's this activation of sympathetic nerves that leads to norepinephrine release in that specific location. And that causes these melanocyte stem cells to proliferate and differentiate and migrate and be permanently depleted, causing the gray hair. So it's kind of interesting. It's not just this generalized stress response, it's the specific nerves in a sympathetic response at the location of your hair follicles releasing norepinephrine and basically causing these melanocyte stem cells to go a little wild and then kind of run themselves out, so they live fast, die young, go
That's
gray.
super interesting. Whoa. So wait, do you think like all adrenaline responses, or is it just like this, like it's like a chronic cortisol, like chronic high levels of adrenaline in the system, right? Because I'm not like, do you think every time I'm like working out and I'm getting my adrenaline going or something like that, like my hair's like,
Yeah,
so my hair follicles
dying
like,
a little bit at a time.
stop running.
So in this experiment, in these mice models, they found that it was an acute response. So basically just the sympathetic nervous system being aroused and sending these signals along the neurons, and then those neurons releasing norepinephrine at the site of these hair follicles. So not even thinking about, oh, your cortisol going up. It's literally straight from these neurons at the site of these follicles. So it's kind of a cuts to the chase, but it is an acute stress event.
Whoa, that's really interesting.
Also interesting is that this interaction between your nervous system and then these pigment producing cells, these melanocytes, they think is likely evolutionarily conserved. So you may have seen in cephalopods like octopuses, octopi, cuttlefish, where their neuronal activities actually control the chromatophores for rapid color change in response to threats. So you may have seen videos of like an octopus changing color rapidly when a shark comes by to camouflage itself with a rock. So they think this nervous system control of these pigments is conserved across species, so us as well as octopi. So not so different.
That's really cool. That's like shock the doc material right there. But that, I mean, so like it's like an old like vestige of our combined common ancestor that could change, that could shapeshift.
Right. So we're kind of like octopi, where we change gray rapidly in the case of extreme acute stress, or at least in the mice model showed this, but maybe Marie Antoinette kind of showed too.
That's true.
But yeah, so bigger picture, basically acute stress triggers this fight or flight response, that sympathetic nervous system response, which is essential for survival, but it can also cause irreversible depletion of these stem cells through activation of our sympathetic nervous system. And that leads to permanent tissue regeneration damage, the damage in those melanocyte stem cells. So at least in mice, the sympathetic nervous system seems to play a clear role in regulating body physiology and influencing that developmental and tissue maintenance process. This, of course, kind of raises the question of how might acute stress mimic an accelerated aging process? Is it a good proxy or experimental condition for measuring how aging happens on an accelerated timeline?
Oh, that's super interesting. Because like, you know, what you just even thinking, like, as a researcher studying aging, obviously you would think that takes a really long time to do because you have to wait for someone to age. So what you're saying is it's like it might be, in theory, you might be able to induce stress in some way that mimics like chronological aging on our body. Right. So you could perform these studies and then, you know, find out what helps you resist stress and all these kind of sort of things and what it does to your body. And that's super interesting. Really interesting.
Exactly. Just recruit a population of subjects and have them go to Costco every Saturday for a couple weeks and see how they age. But no, so that was one interesting study. And then we touched on nutritional deficiencies, just alluded to them briefly before. But there are a number of studies I came across that link various vitamin and micronutrient deficiencies to premature graying of hair. Although there's not a particularly ironclad picture with tons of replicated studies, but a couple of the findings I came across. So research has shown that vitamin B12 deficiency can be associated with premature graying due to its role in DNA synthesis. There are also studies suggesting that vitamin D3 is important for hair follicle cycling and pigmentation, and that a deficiency may lead to premature graying. And then copper, this one kind of surprised me, is a cofactor for tyrosinase, which is critical in melanin production. And then a deficiency could also lead to reduced pigmentation.
Tyrosinase? So copper is... So, all right, tyrosinase. I think I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, and I kind of think that would be a good wizard name. Tyrosinase, the strawberry blonde.
Ooh, I really like that. I'm gonna have to eventually get another wizard drop for you, because now you're avoiding the Harry Potter drop by like hitting me with something pretty much equal. But all right, well, I'm on to you. Just know that I'm on to you.
You cannot catch me. But yeah, so I also saw someone on Reddit anecdotally talking about copper fixing their premature grays. So you can take that to the bank.
Well, yeah, or it's copper, so you might want to take it to the scrapyard.
Or just take it if you're premature gray.
That's right.
No. So zinc is one of the other ones. It's vital for a bunch of different biological functions, including DNA replication and repair. So its deficiency has been shown to affect hair structure and pigmentation. And then last one for now, folic acid, vitamin B9. It plays a role in the synthesis and repair of DNA, like a couple of these others, and its deficiency may contribute to hair graying. So, in a bizarre twist of fate, vitamin B9 deficiency is not really benign at all. Kind of funny old world.
Oh, what a pun. What a pun. Well, here's a pun for you. Vitamin D3, Mighty Ducks 3, the worst Mighty Ducks movie.
That is a good pun.
Thank you.
All right. Going from the worst Mighty Ducks movie to the worst study I came across. No, this one's not bad at all. And it's in Cell, so maybe it's the best. Cell, right up there with Nature. But no, so this study is called the coordinated activation. Is that because of the wizard thing? Are you so mad about that?
That was a Mighty Duck.
You had to find a way to quack.
It just took me 45 seconds to find the quack sound. That we moved on. Sorry, continue.
No, that's perfect. No, but so, all right, this study in Cell 2014 is called Coordinated Activation of WNT, which I'm going to call WNT, and epithelial and melanocyte stem cells initiates pigmented hair regeneration. In this study, they found that melanocyte stem cells interact very closely with this other type of stem cell called epithelial stem cells, and they work together to regenerate pigmented hair. So WNT signaling was identified as a crucial pathway that coordinates the behavior of these two different types of stem cells, melanocytes and epithelial, during that hair follicle regeneration. Basically, the findings highlight the role of WNT signaling in melanocyte stem cell regulation, and they illustrate how these different type of stem cell populations collaborate and work together and can regenerate these complex organs and tissues. So kind of interesting. And I know it kind of opens the door for, I'm sure there's going to be potential targeting or drug intervention potential that affect this, either the WNT signaling pathway or these specific stem cells, because people are always, maybe not always, but will probably try to find ways, if they can afford it, to target their graying hair to stay young forever.
Yeah, so they're saying you can implant these stem cells in your dome and your hair would get your color back, in theory.
I think that's one potential, or if you find a way, like using a small drug molecule to upregulate this specific WNT signaling, that you could then sort of regenerate these stem cell populations and recover the hair coloration that you so desire.
I mean, we haven't mentioned, like, do you have any gray hairs, by the way?
I actually do. I have a bunch on the sides. I have a few in my beard, but I think we'll get into how impressive and good it is that I have those.
All right. Well, I wasn't going to get into that, so I'm glad that you have that on the docket today. Because here's the kicker. Is it gray or is it gray? Gray or Grey? Well, that depends on where you're listening today. If you're in the United States, you'll probably go with gray, spelled with an A. But if you're in Australia, Canada, or the UK, it's gray, but with an E. Both spellings mean the exact same thing. It's not like it's a darker shade or something, but it's just one of those quirky regional differences in English.
That always used to get me in trouble, because speaking of The Hobbit, I read all those British author books way young, and then I'd always get bad spelling grades or edited growing up because I used all their stupid English spelling instead of the smart American spelling.
Oh, yeah, like the Netflix story about Zed. It's like, yeah, you could say I was a troublemaker growing up. Yeah, I got into trouble early. I read a lot of British literature as a kid, and a lot of times I spelled words with, this is how you talk, words with a U that I didn't need them, and yeah, really messed me up as a kid. I had a messed up childhood because of that.
kind of the bad boy of the third grade spelling bee.
Yeah, because like you're right, but it's like, you make people. It's a contrarian's Contrarian move by you, but that's why I love you. And so here's a little trivia, though, Zed. So to drop on someone the next time you are debating gray versus gray, because this happens all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
The word itself, gray, has ancient roots, just like my wife's hair on the way to the salon. Hey-o! But the old English word for gray was Greg. It was like Graeg, kind of. And the A spelling, that AE, though, is a Grae. And that A spelling only gained popularity in the 19th century when Noah Webster, the famous American lexicographer, decided to standardize American spelling. He preferred simpler spellings, unlike you, Zed, and he dropped the E in a lot of words. And so he gave us gray, Gray, instead of Grey. So if you use gray with an A in America, you are following Webster's lead. It's actually pretty interesting. This one guy, Noah Webster, had a giant influence on how we spell. He was on this patriotic mission to distinguish American English from British English. And he made a bunch of changes, like removing the U from words like color, to make color, COLOR, from COLOUR, and switching theater, THEATRE, to theater, ending in ER. Webster's American Dictionary of the English Language, first published on April 14th, 1828, and it was a bold move by Noah Webster to unify the young American nation linguistically.
He ensnared us all in his nationalistic Webster.
He did it. He did indeed. So another fun fact, 84 years after that first dictionary was published, the Titanic sank. That's fun. Fun fact. Yeah, just a coincidence. But also not having a great time with the Titanic sinking was a man named Harold Bride. He was a junior officer on the Titanic, and he actually lived, but he's also cited as a common example of someone who went gray overnight, kind of like Marie Antoinette. This guy, the stress of just seeing the horrors. It's a fun fact, right?
It is fun. Him walking around afterwards with like the dumb tourist T-shirt. I went on a vacation on the Titanic, and all I got was this stupid hair
and a lifelong trauma.
You didn't really hear about Rose turning gray overnight after losing Jack to the North Atlantic. Can't have been too fussed, I guess.
Do they tell you how long of a time difference it is between the scene with her? That could be like a week. Yeah. It's like, all right, cool. So this happened yesterday. So he's still out there. Rose, work with us. Rose, oh my God. Rose just turned to dust. So anyway, Noah Webster's decisions and his dictionary were about creating a unique American identity, one word at a time. So every time you spell gray with an A, you're nodding to a bit of American linguistic rebellion. And insert the eagle screeching. I can't do that. That sounded like a witch.
Witches and eagles. It's so confusing.
Very confusing.
Damn, I've been spelling fascism, FAE, the whole time.
FAESCISM?
Yeah. But Webster probably would have done just FAC.
It really looks like the study of feces when you spell it like that to me.
Fascism. Greg.
Fascism. But Zed, before we wrap up, let's synthesize this episode. What are the GTH Big Three Bangers?
All right. Here are the GTH Big Three Bangers of gray hair. Number 1. To hair is human, specifically gray hair.
Ooh.
Graying hair.
I just wanted to appreciate your little wordplay. Ooh.
I feel appreciated.
Look at him go.
So graying hair, we know now, is primarily a result of the natural aging process. As we age, the production of melanin decreases due to the reduction in the activity of melanocytes in hair follicles or of color ink cartridges. But basically, primarily influenced by genetic factors, but it can also be accelerated by environmental stressors, executions, nutritional deficiencies, and certain medical conditions. And yeah, natural process. All right. Number 2, interventions are pretty black and white. So there are lifestyle, nutritional interventions. For example, I've started putting copper pipe in my Vitamix, and I've canceled all my enrollments in this fun-looking mouse obstacle course I was going to do. You can try to tone back stress in your life. But yes, basically there's limited nutritional and lifestyle interventions you can do. And yeah, All right. So another intervention that we're all pretty familiar with. We didn't cover this much because it's so popular and widely known, but coloring. So dyeing your hair, whether you're dyeing your mustache in college for really good reasons, or you're just trying to tame those grays as you age. We're familiar with the concept of dyeing the hair, but I would caution against dyeing your hair red after everything we've learned in the Ginger and Halloween episodes.
Well, I don't know. I don't know yet, Zed. Just hold on about what wait on your decision. What color you should dye your hair.
Basically, researchers have shown that there are some small molecule drug interventions that have restored hair color, but there's also a lot of side effects and they're extremely expensive. But I'm sure in the future there will be more targeted drugs for rejuvenating those gray hairs as they better understand these pathways. All right. Number 3, big banger, how to age with grace. Grace. How to age with grays.
Grays.
Grays. All right. So we, as we've mentioned a little bit, we are seeing something of a cultural shift, at least in modern American culture, towards embracing the natural accoutrement of age, including gray hair. This movement kind of challenges you want to think of them as traditional beauty standards and encourages acceptance and maybe even celebration of aging as a natural and beautiful process. It also reflects broader societal trends towards authenticity and self-acceptance. Just to give some famous examples of gray trendsetters, there's Gandalf the Grey, Helen Mirren, Gandalf the White.
Sorry, I'm not laughing at Helen Mirren. Just laughing at your lead off being Gandalf, the cultural leader. Continue.
Gandalf the White, not to be outdone. Obama, whom you mentioned. Cruella de Vil.
Yep, Cruella de Vil.
And Dumbledore.
Oh, 3 wizards. So hopefully some of our female listeners now are feeling good about the gray process, knowing that there's 3 old ass wizards from fiction.
And don't forget Helen Mirren.
Oh, and Helen Mirren. She's doing a lot of the lifting right there.
All right, she's in good company with Gandalf. Anyways, all right, so if you're struggling with signs of your own mortality when you look in the mirror, direct your gaze beyond the grays and don't lose melanosight of what's really important.
Oh, wow.
Now that's healthy.
So that was a healthy little way to wrap that up. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
In our Ginger episode, we dove into the fiery world of redheads. A little history, a little culture, a little folklore. But today, we are shifting gears to a cooler shade. I mean, like a literal shade, not like not like they're wearing sunglasses. But that's right, Zed. Today I have a historical perspective all about gray hair. Hey, see, it's a going through health historical perspective right here. Gray hair, whether it's gray or gray. With an A with an A or an E. That joke kills on paper. It has always been a topic of fascination. From ancient Rome to modern Hollywood, gray hair has been celebrated, feared, respected, and sometimes disguised. Today, we're going to take a look back at how societies across the world have seen those silvery strands and why some cultures embrace them while others reach for the nearest bottle of dye. GTH Time Machine. Let's go to ancient Rome. Beep, boop, beep, 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 boop, beep, beep, beep.
Scooby-Doo, bobbity, bop, bop, beep, boop.
Bring the scat man with us. All right. In ancient Rome, gray hair wasn't just about aging. It was a silver badge of authority, wisdom, and power. The Roman philosopher Cicero even wrote, "Old age, especially when graced with gray hair, has an authority of its own, more persuasive than any eloquence." And I bet we can guess Cicero's hair color, right? Because for sure, because he went on to write, "Guys named Cicero are so hot and cool and have great taste in music."
And if the carpet matcheth the drapes, in that individual one is certain to find wisdom beyond measure. Also, don't measure anything else.
Oh, for sure. If Cicero had a big swinging aqueduct, he would he would definitely have written about it.
Oh, couldn't help but notice how well endowed I was today.
Still got it.
Roman senators flaunted their graying hair as a sign that they lived long enough to be wise and experienced. Senators were obviously members of the Roman Senate, the principal legislative and advisory council of the Republic and later the Roman Empire. Senators were typically from the wealthiest and most powerful families, holding significant social and political influence. They were expected to embody this gravitas, this mix of dignity, wisdom, and responsibility, qualities that are often symbolized by their appearance, so including the respected look of gray hair. The term senator actually derives from senex, meaning old man or elder, reflecting the idea that senators were considered wise, experienced figures whose age and life experience were valued in decision-making roles. So yes, I guess it's etymologically appropriate that we have American senators who basically look like corpses from our Halloween episode. Haven't even closed their mouth since the 50s. Younger politicians, desperate to gain respect, were rumored to dust their hair with gray powder to look older and more authoritative. A little bit of early fake it till you make it.
Think Jupiter, my head doth overflow with dandruff. Kind of a nice side effect.
Well, I'm glad you said Jupiter instead of Zeus, though. That makes me respect the hell out of you. I know. That makes me respect the hell out of you. All right, well, whatever. Let's thank you, by the way. And let's head to Imperial China now. They're gonna love to see us. Probably haven't seen anything like us before. Let's get into the GTH time machine. Beep, 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 beep. Gray hair held us in. So stupid.
I was very close to doing the little drummer boy.
I know, me too. I almost went drummer boy too. Well, we'll see if we take one more trip on that time machine later. No, but gray hair held a similar significance in Imperial China as ancient Rome. It was revered as a mark of wisdom and a symbol of respect. The ancient Chinese even had a saying, "White hair is the crown of glory." And in Confucian culture, elders with gray or white hair were to be deeply respected, and showing signs of aging was indicative of a person with profound life experience and insight. Sons and daughters were encouraged to honor their gray-haired parents and grandparents, viewing each strand of hair as proof of a life lived wisely. Just like wise enough not to die during it, basically.
I survived old age.
Exactly, that's basically what it is. Grayheads, I don't know if they're called that, but it was easy on redheads, and this was telling people with gray hair. Grayheads makes the rules, though, is what I'm kind of getting from all this said. Would everyone in Imperial China respect a 15-year-old that just happened to have gray hair? Or is it the fact that gray hair is just a Trojan horse for ageism? Because it's like everyone seems to go gray. So they don't get the witchcraft accusations going immediately like redheads, but I bet a 15-year-old girl in Imperial China would definitely be more witch than wise.
Yeah, they don't probably just attribute it to super early achieved wisdom. Yeah, definitely witchcraft or something.
No one's going to be like, "Oh, we see our new president."
Yeah,
or
child prodigy
or the equivalent.
Yeah, or the equivalent.
But we can't do an episode without mentioning witchcraft. That has now been a theme. Now, gonna have to have a witchcraft cackle drop pretty soon here. But let's there it is. But let's get in that GTH time machine again, Zed, and we'll head to medieval Europe. Beep 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 boop beep boop 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 beep beep boop beep boop.
Little Tchaikovsky.
As always, medieval Europe, not super progressive. It's funny that I was trying to do Little Drummer Boy, but in the moment I just panicked and I was on the spot. But gray hair wasn't always admired in medieval Europe, believe it or not. They're such douches back then, particularly during the witch hunts of the 16th and 17th centuries. Great time. Ooh, terrible time to be to have any weird feature. Gray hair, weird feature. Gray hair was seen as a sign of danger, like redheads. You aren't alone. They were coming after the gray heads too. You know, maybe a little alliance potential there. And it's fucked up for the redheads to turn gray.
Old,
and they're just like, God dang it.
I can't win.
So sick of this crap. But yeah, some accounts from the time suggested that gray-haired women were likely to be accused of witchcraft because they were seen as mysterious, even threatening. Like, oh, okay, all right, I think I know what these bastards were doing. Said it seems very much like they just didn't like her because she was old. But hey, I bet they're sitting around and be like, wow, I wish we didn't burn all those redheads right now. Like, only oldies. Oh, man, at least those other witches were hot.
But they kind of got ahead of the game burning those redheads young because they didn't end up turning gray later.
Ooh.
Have a 2-for-1.
Foresight. Messed up, though, but it is foresight. Well, a pamphlet from 1645 mentioned gray hairs are the sign of the devil's whispers, for in them lies the secret knowledge gained through sin. Wow. If that's actually what I've been writing on birthday cards to my parents for years now. You know, it's just, hey, I have another year, and don't forget, gray hairs are the sign of the devil's whispers, for in them lies the secret knowledge gained through sin. So yes,
that's such a good anti-science, like anti-knowledge angle, that all knowledge and wisdom is gained through devil's gifts and sin.
I bet it was a bald person that did that. Like, it sounds like a joke, but I'm guessing like it had to be someone in power, and I'm guessing, you know what I mean? Like, no one was just like, it has to be like some powerful bald guy.
Just a bald preacher in the Middle Ages. A priest.
I don't think it's like, there we go. Look, Friar Tuck.
no,
Was he a priest?
Cool. No, he's a friar.
Oh, yeah.
Stupid.
Fast forward to Victorian England, and gray hair became a bit of a fashion statement. Though in a roundabout way, the upper class, in their quest to display wealth and dignity, sometimes powdered their hair gray or white. It was a nod to the wisdom of the age while conveniently sidestepping the less glamorous reality of naturally aging hair. Powdered wigs were all the rage, with young and old alike donning them to look like they just stepped out of a courtly portrait. Like this like Instagram like hot thing, you know, like get one of those wigs to make you look old. Some people were so committed to their wigs that they'd even wear special wig cages to keep the powdered creation safe from unruly weather, unexpected gusts of wind, and royal noogies.
Not the wig. Like, trust me, I have a Gucci wig under the cage. I just gotta protect it for obvious reasons. And I lost the key to the cage, so you can't look at it. Anyways, enough about me.
Well, I said jumping to the 20th century, gray hair's image took a bit of a nosedive, especially in Hollywood, where women with gray hair were once again hunted on horseback in the west side of Los Angeles.
Bye, Gordy.
No. But in an era obsessed with youth and vitality, gray hair was something to be covered up and avoided. Enter the multi-billion-dollar hair dye industry, with ads promising to wash the gray right out of your hair. A 1950s Clairol ad famously read, "Does she or doesn't she? Only her hairdresser knows for sure."
Does she or doesn't she what? Like dye her hair?
Yeah. Only her hairdresser knows for sure. That's the only person who knows. No, I think it's, does she still love her husband? Only her hairdresser knows for sure. But even as gray hair became the enemy, some stars bucked the trend, like Helen Mirren and Gandalf the White. Becoming gray, bringing gray back as a chic, sophisticated look. So I also think it helps with Helen Mirren. I don't know about Gandalf, but I think it helps to have a good-looking face, just in general, across the board. I wouldn't know. Today, the perception of gray hair varies wildly depending on where you are. In many indigenous cultures, gray hair is still revered. In Maasai tribes of Kenya, elders with gray hair are honored for their life experience. In South Korea, however, gray hair has often quickly died away, as it's seen as a sign of poor health or declining vitality. Though that's starting to change, among younger generations who see gray as a symbol of confidence and self-acceptance. The gray pride movement, it's just kind of, I like it. It sounds familiar, but I don't know why. The gray pride movement has taken hold in the West too, with social media hashtags like hashtag Silver Sisters. Make sure you tag one of the posts this week. Instagram, folks. And these kind of things celebrate those who let their natural gray shine. So what does gray hair really mean? Well, it depends on the time, place, and who you ask. Gray has been wisdom's crown, a witch's curse, a high society trend, and a modern power move. Whether you're flaunting the silver or covering it up, you're joining a legacy as old as humanity itself. And like, I want to dig deeper, though, Zed, into like how general life expectancy, kind of what you get into, or of your population influences it. Like, is going out of gray, or is going gray going out of style because it's just not like as special much of a flex anymore. Yeah, it's not like a huge flex to like go gray, be like, hey, guess who didn't die yet? Guess who's still alive, idiots? Yeah,
yeah, most of us kind of.
Yeah. But either way, Zed. So next time you spot a gray hair, don't just see age, see history on your head. A reminder, I don't know, history on your head. As a reminder that like fashion and fads, even our hair has got a story to tell.
Damn. Yeah. Fascinating. I kind of like the idea, speaking of fashions and fads, of kind of a wig cage coming back. I just really want to see a picture of that.
It's called a hat, folks.
Wig cage.
That's a cool slang name for a wig cage. Like, oh man, look at this. That's really cool. Like a hat store called Wig Cage. Oh,
I like that.
All right, throw us an email, hat entrepreneur. Actually, there probably is a hat entrepreneur listening. Cool. All right, but Zed, I could talk hat entrepreneurship all day with you, but we don't have time for that, unfortunately, because right now it is time for our Fastfire Questions.
Gordy and Zed's Fastfire Questions.
That is right, Zed. And as always, we start off with our first question, which is, would you rather?
Would you rather?
Zed, here's a question that I was really excited about, but I realize it's kind of out there. Would you rather, I'll explain it, but just would you rather have Benjamin Button hair or Benjamin Button genitalia? All right. And I'll explain this to you. You know Benjamin Button. I've never seen the movie, but like I know the premise, right? He like ages in reverse. Mm-hmm. Okay. So in this thing, it's like I'm thinking like a 100-year mirrored age progression scale. All right. So think of that like a 50-year-old would have like the perfect age appropriate genitalia. You know, and that'd be the midpoint, you know. So like when you're 15, you would have the hair of an 85-year-old or the genitals of an 85-year-old. You know, but when you're 65, you would have the hair of a 35-year-old and the genitals of a 35. But by the time you're like 98 years old, you're gonna have like a great or like baby's hair and a baby's genitalia. It's not ideal at the end of life. Last 8 years, you're gonna tank very hard.
Gotcha. So basically, picking one of these two features of Benjamin Button. I'm just gonna go with the hair because that's easier for me to understand, to get better hair as you age, kind of.
No, here it is. All right, it's time for the next question, Zed, which is, how much money we talking?
How much money we talking?
Zed, how much money we talking? How much money would each head hair follicle be if you got a certain monetary amount for the permanent removal of each of them? Like if each hair follicle was worth $1, would you start pulling them out? Or like if they were worth $20, would you permanently remove this hair follicle? Like what number do you start at?
That's tough because on one hand, I do like having hair, but it's also what I'm used to. But I do think there's not much point to anywhere in between. Like if you hover like less than 5% removed, you probably can't really tell. But then anywhere from 10% to 90% is just going to look shitty. Like I feel like you're better off just going the bald like Bic look or something.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Oh, that's true. That's true. Because if you say we have 100,000 hair follicles in your head, you're saying it's better. You might as well just go for the full 100,000. Then, like, why would you go 50,000? Oh, that's a very good point.
Then look like a mangy opossum at like 60%. So I think I'm going to go. I'll switch things up. I'll go full hair follicle removal. Let's say there's 10,000 hair follicles. I'll do I don't know, like 1,000 per follicle, and then easy money. And then I'll just go with the kind of Yikes! I'll say the bald look.
I think it'll look good. I like it. All right. Well, it is time for our final question. The one that is not a question. It is Shock the Doc.
Shock the Doc.
Zed, did you know that at 35,000 feet in cruising altitude, your taste buds go half numb? The low humidity and reduced air pressure in airplane cabins dulls our sense of taste by up to 30%, especially for sweet and salty flavors. A study by the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany found that the dryness and low pressure not only alter taste perception, but also reduce our ability to smell by up to 20%. And, smell is crucial to tasting flavor. Interestingly, researchers also found that our sensitivity to umami, savory flavors, increases in flight, which might explain why tomato juice and like Bloody Mary mix and stuff like that, rich in umami, becomes a favorite at this cruising altitude. So if you're like me, and you're like, wait a second though, I thought you said that it dulls the saltiness, but it's over here bringing out umami, because I kind of like conflated those, I think, in my head a little bit, which I didn't realize that umami and salty flavors like actually activate different receptors, like even though they're often perceived together in foods, because a lot of the time they just come hand in hand, but salty taste perception relies more on sodium channels, which become less effective in dry, low pressure environments. And umami, however, primarily activates different receptors that are particularly sensitive to glutamate, and it isn't as impacted by altitude changes in the same way that salty flavors is. So it's like actually umami can become even more pronounced because our sensitivity to other flavors like sweet and salty are diminished. So that actually allows umami flavors to stand out more. So I think that's pretty cool.
That's super interesting. And you were telling me off record that you're an umami's boy.
Mama's boy. But I think that it's probably a good thing that we can't smell on airplanes.
No, I was thinking the exact same thing. I think this is a net positive that you can't taste that well or smell that well on planes. Perfect scenario not to smell a bunch of other people stanking it up. And yeah, heck, I wouldn't mind if my vision went away a little bit so I didn't have to look at all these gray-haired boomers.
Well, everyone, thanks for listening, especially our gray-haired boomer audience. No, but thanks for listening to Going Through Health with Gordy and Zed. Listen each week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. New episodes available early Monday morning. Please follow us, rate, and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Please give us 5 stars or whatever the most is. We appreciate that. And it's at goingthroughhealth.podcast on Instagram. Follow us. Any questions? Did I get something wrong? Did that offend you? Did I offend you? Do you have any good coupons? Email us at gordyandz@gmail.com. Hey, Zed, happy anniversary.
Is it my... Oh, yeah. You scared me for a second.
Oh, I got you.
Hey, Gordy, guess what?
What?
Hope you're happy I worked through my freaking lunch.
Oh, the story was about you the whole time.
I'm
Goodbye,
the dentist.
everyone. He is the dentist.
Hey, this is Zed. This podcast is intended solely for general informational purposes and does not represent the provision of medical advice or the practice of any professional healthcare services. No clinician-patient relationship is formed. Nice try. And the use of the information provided or materials linked is at the user's own risk. The content of this podcast is not meant to replace professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should seek medical advice for any health issues they may have and should consult their healthcare providers for any such concerns.